Rats. I'm here with a game I played on the morning of June 3rd at ICC. I recorded the game live, and unfortunately the video feed messed up on me in several points. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the audio feed and the game from my history and putting the two together and making a new video. So there'll be a little extra move clicking as we go, but we'll have to live with that. Also, a new feature that I've just implemented, I've put it into all my lessons on my website. I will include the PGN in the YouTube link, so if you would like to use an interface, say like Winboard, and load the game, the PGN, into Winboard, you can follow along at the same time as you're watching the video. That way you can test out some lines as you go. So anyway, I thank Mr. X who suggested that to me. That was his name on his email, X, and I got a kick out of that, and so did he. So, Mr. X, thank you. Anyway, let me just start the video, and we'll see the game. So I'm here to play a game in the 45-minute pool at ICC. I will be taking my time. I'm playing against aarav, or aarav. Alright, what's he going to do for his first move? He's rated 1653. I'm going to take my time. Hopefully he will. I've noticed a lot of players who play in this pool don't take their time, and they move very quick. So 30 seconds have passed, and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do here. I hope he plays the game and doesn't abort. Okay, so anytime, my friend, have a move. Of course, I'm ready to play. Is he ready to play? I hope he's ready to play. I want him to be ready to play, because I'm ready to play. And we just sit here and wait. There he moved. Okay, e4. Now I'm going to play my Nimzovich defense, and let's see what kind of variation of the Nimzovich defense we get. Does he go into main line with d4? Yes, he does. Okay, now I prefer to play d5 here, and there's three main moves for black. Which one will he pick? We don't know yet. We'll find out soon enough. Okay, e5, knight c3, and e takes d5 are the main moves. Okay, he elected e5, and I always play bishop f5 after that move. Okay, and a lot of times I'll follow up with a quick f6. I have played e6 before. One move that's a mistake from white, and actually I've run into it quite a few times, is to play 4 bishop d3, and that just drops a pawn. Okay, so he played knight f3, and I go f6. Now at this point he'll probably play bishop b5, and I have to stop and remember the line. Okay, he didn't play it. Okay, this is fine with me. I'm going to get the c5 square wrested away from him, I believe. Okay, although he can play the tricky bishop b5 in this position. Okay, no matter where he takes, if he takes back on e5, I'm getting c5 will come under my control, and I'll be able to put a bishop there soon enough. Okay, good. Now he took there, and as I said, I'll be able to have c5 for my bishop here shortly. So those are two pretty good bishops, and this is I'll take my time here while I'm thinking, not just rush off the moves. Okay, what we've seen, and I'll just kind of like go back just so we can illustrate what we just did. Okay, I played f6 to let me just back it up one more. I played f6 to undermine the white center, and in a lot of positions that knight isn't on f3 when I do it yet, and white's able to get f4 in, and I don't mind that. We exchange on e5, and the f file opens up, and I can almost always castle kingside, and in some cases I'll even castle queenside. And when he plays c3, that just basically lets me get what I want. Okay, just going through the arrow, pawn takes on e5. Now unless he plays bishop b5 here, which is risky, I'm going to get, as I was saying, I'm going to get control of c5, because he can't keep a pawn on it if he recaptures on e5. And if he plays d takes e5, I still play e6, which is going to be my move when I catch up. But now I just go ahead and do what I did, and I've got rid of my weakness, the backward pawn on the open file, and now I play e6 and await developments. Okay, so like I say, I've got control of c5. I'll be able to probably put a bishop there unless he puts a bishop on e3, but I'm not too worried about that. So we'll just go forward and show you the lines as they happen. Okay, so White's got a wide diversity of moves to play here, but I'm happy against any of them. I've been in this position countless times: tournament games, blitz games, analysis, postal games. I've been there, done that. So let's see what he's got. So while we're waiting for him to move, let's just look at a few of the attributes of this position, of this opening. It's similar in some respects to a French defense, the difference being that Black has his French bishop out. And a lot of times the price that Black pays for this is that his knight is stuck on c6 and he can't get c5 in. But here I've gotten rid of my knight on c6, so in some respects I've gone a little better than a French defense. I've got with the bishop out. So I could play c5 here, but there's really no point in it. What I want is development. And my move is going to be bishop c5, and then I'll explain some of the ideas. But in a way, look at how quickly the Black game is getting developed. I did have a knight that I developed on the first move, the Nimzovich knight, and it's traded off, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And my bishop on f8 will go to c5, as I said. Then the knight will go to e7, and in some cases it goes on to f5, but right now I have a bishop there, so I can't do anything with that. But it can also go to g3 and be eyeballing both f4 and h4. We don't know everything yet. But my move is going to be bishop c5 here, and I don't want to rush the move just yet. The reason being I want to stop and just collect my thoughts about this opening so that I can explain it to you. Again, going way back to the beginning, let me just point to that square, or to this point. Well, here I'll go one move back. e5 is a line, but it takes on entirely different positions, including a possible transposition into a scotch. But I prefer d5, and White has three main moves here: knight c3, e5, which he played, and e takes d5. And hopefully I'll get an example of each in the near future so I can start explaining all the ideas behind it. If you're looking for an alternative defense to e4, the Nimzovich may be exactly what you're looking for. My source material may be outdated. I don't know if he's published anymore, but Hugh Myers, who's about a 2200 player, has written some incredible books in depth about the Nimzovich. The last one I had, I think, was published around 1995. Maybe he's made more editions since. I know he had one back in the 70s, which I don't have a copy of. Then I have like one with a green binder published in the 80s and a couple of red ones from the 90s. And he covers all the lines, and it's an economical book. It doesn't cost much. There's a lot on every page. He's basically typewritten it out, and every page is full with some diagrams and plenty of ideas and sample games. But anyway, e5 I'm happy with. I'm happy playing against any line, actually. And like I say, I've played e6 in this position before. I used to play it, and it's nothing wrong with it, but I got addicted to playing f6 and undermining the White center at an early stage. So that's my own preference, but e6 is perfectly playable. And then, as I said, I make the exchange here, and now I'm going to go ahead and play bishop c5. And the nice thing about this is it hits that f2 square. Okay, and really the bishop is safe there. He may eventually play knight d2 and knight b3 and kick it back to b6, or he may try and shove his queenside pawns, but I'm not too worried about that. I have plans against that. Like I say, everything's been tried against this for me before. So in a way, it's kind of funny to see two bishops out early like this for Black. Black's got both his bishops out, but that's kind of rare. But look at that. They're raking across the center of the board. I control or have influence over a big portion of his center, as well as striking f2. And I'm getting developed freely. The knight will go to e7 next, and then I'll castle, and then the knight may go to g6. It just depends. A lot of times White will endeavor to trade the light squared bishop off. He chose bishop e2. Had he played bishop d3, my knight would have gone to e7, so that if he takes, I retake back with the knight on f5, and I have this wonderful knight on f5. Okay, so now he's played knight d2, and he's got two ideas with that. He's going to play to b3 and then to d4, or he's going to play to f3, and I'm fine against either. So in this case, what I may be doing is actually giving up the bishop pair, because I'll get this wonderful knight. You'll see here as I explain it. This could happen. Black will play knight e7, I'll play knight e7, he'll play knight b6, and I'll drop the bishop back to b6, and then he'll play knight d4. Now he's on the bishop. Well, I could preserve it if I want, but I don't really want to. I'm just going to castle and get my pieces into play. And if he takes the bishop, I can take back with either the knight or the rook. And I've got good attacking chances against his king, and I've got a lead in development. And his bishop pair actually won't be all that valuable here. Eventually, my knight is going to get one of his bishops in return for it. And I don't mind trading the light squared bishop in this position, because I've set up my center pawns on white, so I'm getting rid of theoretically my bad bishop. And if I can trade my knight for his light squared bishop, I'll have the better ending with the bishop. So this opening is really quite versatile for black. There's a lot of possibilities in just about every line, and some are similar and some aren't. But until I can show more examples of how I play this opening, you'll just have to learn it slowly along with me as I go. And there was a time when I had to learn it. I really didn't know much beyond the E5 lines when I adopted this back in correspondence chess in 1986. I forced myself to learn it. And now, like I say, he'll play, he might castle, but he'll probably play knight b3 with the idea of going knight d4, or he'll castle. Okay, he went ahead and castled. Now, is it worth me trying to save the bishop? Okay, that's a good question. Since he's taken a tempo away from playing the knight b3, knight d4 idea, let's consider what we could do here. Let's try and logic this out, since I'm familiar with this position. Okay, if I castle, and he plays knight b3, and I play bishop b6, and he plays knight d4, now, what's my next move going to be? I have to, I can't just move the bishop away and preserve it. What I have to do is stop and play something like queen d7, which connects my rooks and gets my queen developed, although maybe not to the best square. But then if he takes on f5, then I can even take with the rook here. Well, probably take with the knight. Taking with the rook just might run into some nuisances with bishop g4, but if I take with the knight, then I'm ready to play rook f7 and rook a f8, and I've got a lot of pressure on the f file. So the alternative to preserving the bishop, which I was willing to give up in this line, is just to play queen d7 immediately. And the purpose of playing queen d7 immediately is that I'm covering e6 now, which I wasn't before. So now on queen d7, knight b6, bishop b6, knight d4, I have the option of just coming back with bishop to g6, and I preserve the bishop, and I can drive that knight out of d4. I can play c5 and so forth. But there's some slight drawbacks with going into this line. Okay, for the first point is that white can have a little bit of nuisance value here. He can play bishop g4. Now he's piled up on e6, and now I have to kind of back things up a little bit and play bishop f7, or play bishop takes d4 and get rid of his knight. And neither one is exactly a move I want to play. I want to keep my dark squared bishop for the reasons I said earlier. It's a better bishop to have in the ending, and I really don't want to back up be developing pieces and then back them up. Although I can eventually drive his bishop away, I'm not getting exactly where I want. So after I play bishop f7, it's now his move, and now he has a chance to develop a piece, and suddenly he's ahead in development. So I don't really want to play backup here. That's the reason why I'll stick to my guns and just continue my development and castle. And if he wants to trade off his knight for my light squared bishop, I'm just going to let him. Okay, so sometimes development really takes a precedence on how you determine whether you keep or part with the bishop pair. Okay, so. And as it stands, I'm nicely ahead in development now. I've got everything out but my queen and my queen rook. He still has queen bishop and queen rook stuck at home, and his queen hasn't moved yet. My queen's going to move here shortly. Okay, knight b3. Now, as I said, I'll play bishop b6 and allow him to play knight d4. Okay, he's saying hi, so I'll say hi back. Hello. Okay, now I've already planned. My move is to play queen d7, and which connects my rooks. Now let's see. Before I play that, let's just consider some candidate moves, since that's what I preach. Select candidate moves. What are my alternatives to queen d7? Okay, one alternative is just to play c5 right now. The purpose of c5 right now is it forces him to commit what he's going to do with the knight. There's some drawbacks to it. I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, if I play c5, he plays knight takes f5. Now I can take on f5 with my rook. Okay, if I take on f5 with my rook in this position, I'm actually riding on his e5 pawn, but I've got to be careful here. He might have a tactic to sacrifice that. Bishop g4. Okay, now I'm kind of embarrassed here. I have to take it or drop my e6 pawn, and then maybe he plays bishop f4 here, and he's on my rook, and the rook's kind of running out of squares. I have rook e4, and then his bishop is loose. So what's he going to do? He could play bishop g3, and my rook might get stuck here. I don't know. That's not a very good place to have it, right there with a couple of bishops running around the center of the board. It doesn't have any convenient way out, and f3, well, he may not be threatening f3, maybe just simply bishop f3 instead of pawn f3. See, f3 allows some checks. So the other drawback of pushing c5 right away is that I've shot my bishops diagonal in, and in some cases you don't use the c5 push unless there's a pawn on d4, and we don't have one there now. There's a knight there, and the idea of pushing c5 if there's a pawn up, for instance, let me just say it this way. Okay, if in this position I play bishop takes d4, which I'm not going to do, but if I did, and if he took back with his c pawn, at some point, not now, but at some point, I'll be playing for the break c5. The purpose is that whether he takes or not, I'm going to take, and I'm going to end up with a protected pass pawn on d5. And that's one of the things that can arise out of this opening. That's what I wanted to show. It's not really coming up in this variation, but it's something I wanted to show. So I think we can safely reject c5 because it just shuts my own bishop's diagonal down, and it doesn't help my development on the back rank. I need to get those guys developed. So the move is going to be queen d7. And there's one other candidate move, and that's rook f7. The purpose of rook f7 is that I would want to take back with the knight on f5 and keep the d8 h4 diagonal for my queen. So let's just think about that for more before we move. Okay, where was I? Get this down. Okay, rook f7. Now, if anything, he might have the tricky move g4 here. And g4 chases my bishop, and e6 falls. So queen d7 seems necessary. Okay, so you can't always get everything you want, but you can try. Okay, so now I'll play queen d7. Then and only then do I preserve the option of bringing my bishop back to g6, which, like I say, I may not want to do at all. It just depends. Okay, so queen d7. Let's see how he responds. Okay, as time has gone, I have spent basically 5 minutes on the game. I have plenty of time on the clock. I'm familiar with this type of position, and I'll need more time later when the middle game enters. We're just about to enter there now. The opening is almost over, if it's not over already. And again, I've played these strategies many times. I wouldn't even be surprised if I haven't had this exact same position before. It wouldn't surprise me in the least, because I know the themes. He's asked me a question. I'm even making a video of this game for instructional purposes. You can find it later on my website, linked in Play me on Fix, because that's where it is. Okay, so he played bishop g4 anyway. Okay, that's a move I don't mind. Now let's look at my candidate moves here. Okay, I can take the knight on c4 or d4 if I want. Now, do I want to? There's some reasons to it. Let me just explain. Let's analyze bishop takes d4. Okay, he has three potential candidate moves here. He can play bishop takes f5, and I think that one falls because I just play bishop takes f2 check, and he has to get a check, and then I take his bishop. So him taking on f5 isn't any good. Now if he takes on d4 with his queen, I can play a number of moves here. I can play knight c6. Knight c6 attacks his queen, and he has to stay in the direction of his bishop. He has to be watching his bishop, because I'm would be threatening to take it. And so, like, for instance, let's just say queen, where's he going to go? Queen d1. Let's just play safe, queen d1. Well, then I get knight takes e5 in. Okay, so he can't really go there. So if he goes queen f4, then I have moves like bishop d3, trying to pick up the exchange on him. And unless he can counterattack e6 conveniently, doesn't get him anywhere. So, wow, maybe this bishop takes d4 has some merit. Let's see, let's look a little deeper. Okay, bishop takes d4, so he can take with the pawn. Okay, now I don't mind that so much. Okay, now I can take his bishop. Bishop takes g4, and queen takes g4. Now I've got an ideal knight. My knight's on some good squares. It can get to f5. It can get to g6. It can get even back to c6 and pressure him on that pawn. I really like this position for black, just because of the positional aspects that it gains for black. Can you recognize that? You're going into, if you're playing for an ending, those are some targets for the knight to attack. The pawn on d4, it's a weak point in the black position, or in the white position. So what we're looking at is taking on d4 here, and we'll get into that in just a second. So here I'm willfully getting rid of both of my bishops, with the express purpose of going into an ending that eventually seeing a possible ending where I have the better knight versus the bishop. And they're not always the easiest things to win. The bishop still moves faster, but it's a tangible advantage to play for, and the burden is on white to burden is on white to demonstrate otherwise. And he's asking me questions. See my About Me page on my website. Okay, back to where I was. So I've only looked at one candidate move right now. Bishop takes d4. The alternative, what other alternative candidate moves do I have? Bishop takes g4. I think he's forced to take on g4. And then, if I want, well, he's attacking e6 now, so this kind of transposes into the other lines. If I take on d4, it does transpose, it seems. Except he can take with the queen, and I don't have that weak pawn on d4 anymore. Although on knight c6 he can play queen e3, and his bishop isn't all that active, but my knight isn't as good in this position as it is in the other. Okay, so let's see. What else? Let me just kind of think here. What other kind of candidate moves do I have besides taking on g4 or d4? c5. Do I want to do that? c5. Might go into some of the other lines. Knight takes f5. Knight takes f5. And what's my threat? I don't have a threat. I suppose maybe the threat is to play c4 and just have a better diagonal for my bishop. I don't know. Doesn't quite look right, feel right to me. Sometimes we play these things on instinct, and I'm trying to explain why it doesn't feel right. And the reason I guess it doesn't feel right is because I'm not playing it yet. I'm a move away from playing it. What if he plays a move like b3 in this position and says, well, you can't play c4 now? I guess that's why. And of course this gives me potential breaks with pawn to d4, which may or may not be good. It would get me it would get me a passed pawn in the center of the board, and even if his e5 pawn still stays weak if we go into bishop ending. So this is potentially okay for black. I could play this now. As I said way back in my promotion video, it's a matter of comparing the candidate moves, analyzing the candidate moves out, and figuring things out. This guy's 10 years old. Oh my God. Okay, well, say I'm 57. Anyway, he wants to talk. That's fine. I'll be friendly. I just got to make sure I don't lose on time, which shouldn't happen in a 45-minute game. Now, do I like this various position as white or as black? Anyway, let's see. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Would I be happy with black here if there was $1,000 on the line and I needed a win? It doesn't force him to take the knight on f5, and he's still got some indirect pressure on e6. Can my knight do better? I don't know. Let's see. Besides from b3, he can also he could also play bishop takes f5. Anyway, rook takes f5. Now I'm on e5, so he's got to deal with that. He deals with that by, say, queen e2, because rook e1 might unprotect f2. Now if I play c4, I've reactivated my bishop. That's a good bishop I have. I really like this possibility for white. I mean for black. White always mix white and black up. Okay, that's what I did. Anyway, let's go back to the original position. Consider that. Okay, my candidate moves so far are taking on g4 and on d4. And of course, if I take on g4, I don't get some options I do in the other one. He has some ways to go wrong. It's kind of what's fun about chess. You have several good possible continuations, and both look promising, and you can't make up your mind which one you like. It's kind of like the old fable: the donkey was in between two piles of oats, and he just was lavishing the thought of having a big snack, and he couldn't make up his mind which one he wanted. And while he was making up his mind, he eventually starved to death. So the alternative is here is if I can't make up my mind, eventually my flag will fall. So what can I do? I can just try and play a good move here. Okay, so I've got my rooks connected. I've got just about everything I want. Let's see. Bishop takes d4 again. I think we agreed that queen takes d4 runs him into trouble because I have knight c6 and his queen gets a little overworked. Guarding e5 and g4. So let's see. Knight c6, queen d1, and I just play knight takes e5 and he's in trouble. And on queen f4 I play bishop d3, and on queen a5 I play knight takes e5, and he doesn't have anything. Okay, so queen d4 is out, so that means he takes with the c pawn, and then I take his bishop on g4 and he takes with his queen, and then what? I can play knight d4 here and just keep pressure on his d4 square. If I keep pressure on his d4 square, his only reasonable chance here, he really can't do anything on the c file. If anything, I'll just play c6 and that's over and done with. His only thing would be to try some kind of a pawn roller on the king side, but his queen's in the way of the pawn roller for the moment. So knight f5, he could play, for the sake of argument, queen e. No, I can't go queen e2. He's got d4 hanging. He might just play bishop e3 and offer to give back the bishop, just to get out of the potentially bad ending. I'm liking this less and less. I'm liking the other one more and more as I'm looking at it. Although theoretically, and really it's not much of an advantage for black to have, just to have that one pawn that's sitting there on d4 that a knight can attack. And this seems this if he plays bishop e3, I don't really have a heck of a lot, as much as I did. So what was my other candidate move? Was it to play c5 right now, or to play bishop takes g5 first and then c5? I think it was to play c5 first, and I couldn't necessarily play it earlier. A couple of moves ago I showed why it wasn't any good, because my development wasn't complete, but now my development is just about complete except for my queen rook. So, and his development is still a little bit behind, so it's something I could probably get away with. Now let's just verify it for you guys. Okay, so c5 immediately. If he plays knight takes on f5, I play knight takes f5. Now he could play bishop takes f5, but I don't think he's going to willfully give up the bishop pair. If he doesn't do anything, I'm going to play c4 and reestablish that diagonal for myself. So he could play bishop takes f5 anyway, rook takes f5, but he's got to guard e5. That's his problem. Yeah, I'm just going to play c5 here. It's the better move, and I need to move, and either move is fine, but I think c5 is the better move. And he can show me otherwise if he has a trick. Hopefully I have covered all the bases here. Like I say, but I think this gives black more winning chances than the other one the first line where I just go into a knight versus bishop position with queens and rooks on the board, where he has one weakness, the pawn on d4 that my knight's assaulting. And you need a second weakness to get in to win, and really I don't have a second weakness in his position. Okay, he took with the knight on c5. That's fine. Now I'm going to take back with the knight. Okay, now my plan is to play c4 here. And if he plays c4, I'll play d4. And my bishop's a little less active, but I have a pass pawn, and my bishop will find a new diagonal. and on c7 to h2. Okay, so he played bishop f4. Now I've got all kinds of tactical possibilities if I want them. Do I want them? I mean, by that tactical possibility, I mean moving the knight somewhere where it attacks his bishop on f4. Okay, so anyway, I don't think I really have a lot of tactical options. If I play knight d4, okay, that's an interesting move. Knight d4 threatens to take his bishop. Okay, so what's he going to do? Well, he could just move his bishop and then my knight's sitting there. What's it do? It goes back to c6 maybe? So I can attack on e5? Maybe? Okay, so let's see. Knight d4. What if he just goes bishop e3? And then I play knight c6 and he plays f4. Now he's covered his weakness on e5, and he's gotten on the diagonal. I don't want him on that diagonal. That's one idea of having the knight on f5. It keeps him out of e3. So suppose I just go with my original plan and play c4 here, just opening up the diagonal for my bishop. Okay. Okay, so anyway, we're going to play... Sorry about losing the screen there. Okay, knight... Let's play c4. Okay, c4. c4 it is. Okay, I have 28 minutes left. He's moving very quickly. He has more than his original time available, and I've got certain positional aspects of the position that I want. As I say, I've got a dark squared bishop and a chain of pawns on white squares, so my bishop has mobility. I want to keep the dark squared bishops in this case. I will happily trade my knight for his light squared bishop. I don't necessarily want to go into opposite colors, although that doesn't mean a draw. The attacking side is always a piece ahead, and we'll go from there. So it's his time to think. He's got to try something here. I'm not too worried about moves like b3 because that just opens up a c file for me. I can play rook c8 and let him push by if he wants. Fine. I can take and then play rook c8. I can take on b3 and then play c8. Okay, played bishop f3. Okay, what's he threatening I should worry about? Anything? Well, I have knight h4 here. Knight h4 attacks his bishop on f4. And like I say, I want to trade off his light squared bishop, and this just may do it. Okay, so knight h4. Now I've got attacks on both bishops. What's he going to do? If he drops the f4 bishop back, I'm going to double his pawns. Okay, so as much as I'd like to keep that knight, maneuver with it, I think it's time to get to make a trade. So what trick does he have, if anything? He can play. He can't really play queen d2 because, well, he can, but I'll just double his pawns. And yeah, looks like I guess I'm going to double his pawns. What does he do to stop? I mean, I'm not seeing how he stops me from doubling his pawns. And then I'll have the better bishop. Okay, he's got to save the bishop on f4. He has to. He doesn't have a tactical shot anywhere else. Bishop takes d5, goes nowhere. Bishop g5, I just take on f3, and he's got double pawns. Yeah. It's a shame he's playing too quick, and he did say he's only 10, so that might explain it. So knight h4 is the move. Now what else can he do? I don't see what he does. He could try bishop e3 here, but I still double his pawns and then preserve my bishop. Oops. How does this happen? See, my recording software records only whatever's on the screen, and if I turn my head and something, the mouse slips off, and you get a peek on what's on my desktop. There's nothing there worth anything. Just a bunch of my junk. Okay. So he's got to deal with the threat on f4. g3. Okay. I think he's going to run into trouble here. I think he's losing a piece because when I take on f3, it's with check. And then if he takes back with the queen, I play g5. Then he plays queen g4. But this is alright. I guess maybe I'm not winning a piece. Maybe I'm not doubling his pawns. Maybe I am. Let's see. But I'm getting what I want. As I explained earlier, if I trade my knight, I want to trade it for his light-squared bishop. So if anything, I'm getting what I want here. And look at all of his pawns on the color of his bishop. So that's a weakness of his here. And his bishop is kind of serving as a tall pawn, operating on f4. Now, one interesting move, aside from taking, is just to play knight g6 here. What's he do? See, the idea is I'm going to win a pawn on f4, get those pawns doubled after all, but it leads to bishops of opposite colors, which can be interesting. And his pawns may fall. Of course, interesting thing he can do is just give up that e5 pawn, save his bishop for a rainy day. Knight g6, he could play bishop g5, maybe bishop e3, and just like I say, try to save the bishop for a rainy day, and then try to generate some play on the open e file, because I'll have a backward pawn that's exposed. But that's a possibility. But I'm kind of liking knight takes f3 right away. Queen takes f3. Now what do I do? Like I say, I can't really play g5 because he gets queen g4 in, and then my pawn is pinned. Okay, so what do? It's doubly attacked. I have to play h6, and he gets maybe some counterplay with h4. Yuck. Okay, so we don't have to do that. So one drawback with taking on f3 is I am developing his queen as a result, but that's all right. I get his light squared bishop back and justify my parting with my light squared bishop, because now I've got the better ending. Okay, so just looking for any other candidate move. Knight takes f3. Knight g6 I said is possible, but I don't really like it. You can just sacrifice. So knight takes g3. Queen takes, or knight takes f3. Queen takes f3. Now I guess I go about my business. He has no weaknesses to attack. I'll just play rook f7, and then rook a f8, and he's going to have to wiggle out of that pin that he's under, and I'm going to have all kinds of pressure on f2 at some point. Okay, so I'll just take his bishop, and then I'll play rook f7, getting more of my development going, because I've got this half-open f-file, and one of the themes of the Nimzovich defense is that black will operate on that half-open f-file. So just based on this game, you can see how easy it is to get a reasonable game to play from an opening that white's not all that familiar with. Now, as I said, g4 is a mistake, so I'll just bring my rook up, as I said, and he's quite safe there. He can't attack it with anything. So, no hurry. I'm just gradually improving my position little by little. He's got all those pawns on black squares, and I've got a bishop that is tailor-made to attack them. He's got a nuisance pin right now to deal with. Okay, and he's dealt with it. Now I'll just okay, so looks like here he's trying to play bishop e3 and solve some of his problems. Okay, but how do we go about confusing the issue on that? Okay, how do we go about confusing the issue on that? Suppose I double up my rooks. There's nothing wrong with doubling up my rooks, right? So I double up my rooks, and he plays bishop e3. Now, what I can do, don't really want to take on e3, but I could. if he takes with the pawn, he's got double pawns, and e5 remains weak. And if he takes with the queen, I can play rook f3. Let's see. So he's on a7. So let's see. If I double my rooks, he plays bishop e3. I can also play tricky moves like queen b5. Queen b5 threatens. Okay, for instance, if he plays f4, I can take on e3 with check, and then take on b2. Although he gets his rooks activated on the b file. Okay, where was I? What do I want to do here? Let's see. What do I want to do? Never know exactly what I want to do until I do it. Okay, rook af8. If he plays bishop e3, I also have queen c7, which is an interesting move. It threatens the pawn on e5, and if he plays f4, do I have anything to show for that? Not really. Don't really have what I want. Okay, so not getting as much out of this as I'd hoped, but that stuff happens. Okay, going back to the queen b5 idea, because one nice thing about it is it confuses him. He doesn't know exactly what I'm doing. Queen b5, if he plays bishop e3, I can just, well, can't really just do that. Okay, rook f8, bishop e3, queen b5. Now he plays bishop takes b6, queen takes b6. Now his pawn's pinned. He can't play f4, but he can play king g2. And the purpose of king g2 is to prepare for pawn f4, and he's got a decent game. So, okay. Gotta find something else here. But it's wonderful to be able to play a game where you're the one that has the options and your opponent doesn't. You know, to do this with black, as I say, I think this just speaks highly for the whole value of a Nimzovich defense, because it gets white out of everything he's usually prepared for, and even if he knows a little bit about the Nimzovich defense, black just gets such a number of good chances here that it makes it worth his while to try. Okay. If I play rook af8 and he plays bishop e3, what if I just play rook f3 here? What's he going to do? Okay, what's he going to do? If he takes on b6, then I play queen takes b6. Now I'm crawling all over f2, right? Okay, so he plays king g2, willing to sacrifice his, or not really sacrifice, but exchange his queen for two rooks. Okay, now I've got to yield a little bit here. What do I do to yield? I have rook d3 at my disposal. I would like to get tripled on the on that f file. That's what I'd like to do. So let's if I triple on it, then get rook f3 in when his bishop moves. So if I double rooks and he plays bishop e3, suppose I play rook f3 directly. Now if he takes on b6, I take with the pawn, and this is fine. The moment he plays king g2, I now have queen f7 and I'm tripled, and he can't attack my pawn on b6, and now my queen has a little bit more free reign. I can play queen to f5 and have a little more influence on the board, and that's it. Voila. Okay, problem solved. So the solution was to triple. Okay, rook af8. Now if bishop e3, I'm going to play rook f3. He could play king g2 here and try to avoid some of that, but that gives me time to do a few things of my own. So once again, he's using all his time, and okay, he played queen d2. Not too worried about that. See, really, black doesn't really have anything to worry about here, except for at this point his clock, because I've consumed half an hour more than my opponent has. So the question now is, how do I go about increasing any kind of pressure that I have? Well, queen b5, the idea of queen b5 here is that if he plays bishop e3, I can take, and well, we going into that again, where he gets his rooks activated. Let's see. Okay, just got to stop and settle down here. If I play g5, that's an interesting move. If I play g5, he plays bishop takes g5, or he doesn't have to. Then I have rook takes f2 for what it's worth, or do I? Not really. Or do I? Yeah, because I've got enough guys on it. And if he plays rook takes f2, I have rook takes f2. And his queen's in trouble. He's got to move his queen. And I've given up nothing for this, and I get a discovered check next move. So he's probably got to stay on the same diagonal as bishop, but then I have rook c2 check. I think g5 here. He's just allowed g5. I think. Okay. What's he do on g5? He can decline it and play bishop e3. And then I can play g4. If anything else, I can play g4, and I'll stop him from playing f4 and keep the e5 pawn isolated. It can't be protected by f4. And again, I don't mind if he doubles my pawns on b6, because I gain certain other things. I think g5 just messes him up. What am I missing? I always like to double check, especially when I have plenty of time. The drawback is eventually you do this enough and you don't have too much time. That's where time trouble comes in. So g5, if he takes it, I just take on f2, and I think he's in trouble. So he has to play bishop e3, and I don't take with the bishop on b6. I push g4, and if he wants to play, oh wait a minute, no, I'm fine. Bishop takes b6, queen takes ab6. He can play queen g5 check, but I have rook g7, and I'm holding my g4 pawn, and rook f3 is coming, and he can't stop it. Okay, g5. Here we go. Let's see what you got, my friend. Okay, so I fully expect him to play bishop e3. It's his only move, and my candidate move is g4. Let's make sure of it. G4 isn't. G4 looks fine. Like I say, I don't want to take on e3 and let his queen fork a couple of my pawns. Okay, he played bishop e3, and again, I don't mind the double pawns. Now I've had to give up the bishop that I want, but I'm getting something for it. I've got a target now on e5. I've got a weak pawn on e5 to play for. So, and that's my objective here. I've created a first weakness in his position. the pawn on e5. And we're in no hurry to win that pawn. That'll come later. We'll just go about and win that later. Now the next step is to sink a rook in on f3 and then try and activate the queen somehow. Either transfer it to the f file and get it into f5. One way or the other, I'll be trying to improve my queen's position. Okay, so he took, and I on b6, and I take back. Now what does he have? He has queen d4 forking a couple of pawns, but I'm not too worried about that. You know, his queen goes out of play when he does this. Okay, so if I play queen b5, this is something that came up earlier. If he checks, I'm not on e6 anymore. Okay, so I'm not, like I say, I'm not worried about losing the pawn on b6. That's the least of my worries here. I've got some tremendous pressure here in this position. Let's just play h5, and that'll secure the pawn on g4, and he takes on b6, and then I go park a rook on f5, or I'm sorry, f6, and his e5 square is still weak, and he's tied down to guarding f2, and I may even have some breaks with h4 at some point. So let's just play h5 and let him have the pawn. I didn't even consider him winning this pawn because it just doesn't seem right to send the queen out of play to win a pawn, because positionally he's getting eaten alive here. What he'd like to do is try to free his game somehow, but his only counterplay now in this position is to play a4, a5, a6, and that takes him a long time. Meanwhile, I've got h4 and other things coming up real quick. So I think what I want to do is just tie him up with rook to f3, and then start considering ways to crack him open and see how he plans to defend this position. He might try rook fe1, but he's got to be careful because I could play queen f7 and then I'm on f2, and he can't play rook e3. So I'll just play rook f3 and let him show me what he's got. Okay, so black's got a great game here for a pawn sacrificed. A lot of activity. He's tied down. I have h4 coming for what it's worth, and he can't really afford to let me get too potent of an attack in there. His best bet is, like I say, what's he going to do? a4, a5, a6, that takes time, and when he finally gets that done, I've got a few things going myself. Okay, so we'll just see what happens from here. Who's watching this game? I'm just wondering. Anybody? Lol, 1196. Oh, we got Yuhan and J Landry 54. Or no, Yochanan. Yakanan. I don't know how to pronounce that. Well, thanks for watching, gentlemen. Or ladies. I don't know which you may be, but White's really tied up here. So this is a good pawn sacrifice, and okay, there it is, a4. He heard me. Okay, so now what do we do? We play h4. Okay, what's he going to do? If he does nothing, I'm liable to do something like h3. Okay, so h4, a5, h3, a6. What if I don't take? What if I take here? I can also try to transfer to the H file. Open up the H file. Let's see. I gotta stop and think. What do I got left? 17 minutes? That's time enough. Okay. Just looking for a good candidate move here, aside from h4. Rook d3, rook f5, and I don't want to chase the pawn, that's too slow. How can I get his queen out of there? Do I want to do that? h4, a5, rook a1, a6. If I want to chase his queen out, I have to do it with rook a8 immediately, which just goes a little bit against what I'm trying to do here. One interesting way to try to deflect his queen out is with an eventual d4. h4, he plays a5. Now, if I take on g3, he could take with the f-pawn, then we have a massive exchange on f1, and I get a queen check. And he can bring his queen back to stop the checks. So h3, now we're going to try to figure out how to get a queen to g2. That might be easier said than done, but actually not. Okay, here I have an idea. Okay, h4, he plays a5. h6, he plays a6. Now, I'm not worried about that pawn just yet. Let's mess him up a little bit. Okay, if I play d4, now the idea here is the queen's trying to get to d5, and then I play a rook takes g3 check, followed by queen takes g2 mate. So let's suppose he plays a7 for the sake of argument. Now I play queen d5. Now how does he guard the mate? Okay, he makes a queen, and I play rook takes g3 check, and he's busted. He has an extra queen and he's busted. So how does he defend that? We've got to find a defense. Okay, he can always take on d4 with his queen. So let's see. h4, a5, a6, or h3, a6. Now I play d4. So suppose he takes with his queen. Okay, he takes with his queen. That kind of kills some of my ideas. So maybe what I have to do is stop and play rook d3 first. Rook d3. Okay. Now he pushes by, and I play d4, and he makes a queen, and I play queen d5, and he can sacrifice his queen and start checking me. I don't know, something's, I've had to spend an extra tempo doing this. Okay, I got 13 minutes left. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do this yet, but I'm going to find a way. Okay, h4, a5, h3, a6. I got to drive his queen out of there so that I can get my queen in to mate him. If I take on a6, that stops him from getting a queen for a long time, but now he's pressuring e6. So h4. Minutes left. Rats. That's where the name comes from. Our rats. Nothing just works like you want it. Okay, h4, a5, h3, a6, well, I like having that pawn h3, and I just got to figure out how to get the queen into g2, and it can be done. I just haven't found a way yet. I come up one tempo short the other line, but it looks awful clear that maybe I'm going to get away with it. Let's see. h5, h4, a5, h3, a6. Okay, now rook d3. Now he just takes. Let's just take it. Now I play d5. He makes a queen. I put my queen on d5, and I'm threatening mate. He sacrifices his queen on f8, and I take with my king. Now he doesn't have queen d8 check, but he has rook a8 check, and I got to get my king up. I'm down a rook, and I'm threatening mate. So then he gets queen c7 check in, and I'm almost in trouble here. King g7. He has rook g8 check, and I play king h6, and he has queen g7 check, and it's all over. If I play king f5, he has queen f7 check, and my king goes to e4, and he's in the way. I think I even get mated there. Queen f4. Ugh. So that doesn't work. Okay. So maybe what I have to do is admit I made a mistake and just play this position a pawn down and have an active game and make him prove otherwise. Okay. So for instance, if I play rook a8, he plays a5, I play rook a6, and I chase his queen out. And he goes back to d4. Now he's threatening nothing, and I just redeploy my forces a pawn down. Okay, so I hate to do it, but I can't find a clear win. It's all fantasy. And besides, I can still save h4 and h3 for a little bit later. Let's just drive his queen out of there. And besides, I'm threatening to win a pawn now. Well, not really. He's on my pawns. But I'll chase his queen out first and then maybe take the pawn. So what's he going to do? But my rook is on f3. The pawn, he's ahead a pawn, but it's not really a viable pawn. Okay, e5 is weak. He can't mobilize his kingside pawns at all. Okay, so he played a5. Now we chase his queen out. Where does his queen have? I'm happy if he goes to d6. I'll just surround that pawn and win it. So let's just chase his queen back to d4 and then start redeploying things. Okay. So I gotta work. If I'm gonna win this, I have to work, but that's all right. Okay, queen d4. Now I'm gonna play something like queen g7 and keep my eye on g4. We play queen b4. I don't think that's wise. Okay, that just. Okay, what's he threatening I should worry about? Anything? I don't see what he's threatening. Okay, what I'd like to do is go about back to my intent and get the pawn into h3. If I do that, then I start picking up some tricks to try to get my queen into g2. So if he takes, he's just got some weaknesses over there that I can start working on. Okay, I don't see what he does. I can even play, I'm getting ready to play queen c6 myself here at some point, and then push by with d4. So what if I play queen c6 now? Well, he plays rook d1 and rook d4 and blocks it. Well, I'll just play h4 and See if he wants a second pawn. Maybe he's trying to play b3 here. Well, that's fine. h4, b3, h3. Well, gotta figure this one out. h4, b3. Now if I take on b3, g4 hangs, so I take. Now he takes on c4, and gotta be careful here. Suppose I play rook d3, and if he takes on d5, I take with my queen, and he's got trouble down there. Okay, h4. Win or lose with it. I don't think he has time for b3 right here. It's not a position he can sit and collect pawns because his king could get into trouble here. Okay, so I've got 9 minutes and 32 seconds. He's playing with just his increment. How can he do this? Okay, he played king h1. Well, that helps me because it doesn't really gain him anything, and it puts his king on a diagonal that I might be able to utilize. So h3, b3. I play d4. He plays queen takes c4, and yeah, not exactly sure. I guess he's planning to put his rook on g1, but that's fine with me. I just eat it. I eat f2. So his only play is that I'm seeing is b3. So let's say if I play h3, he plays b3. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to mess up his king. So I play rook d3 here, and if he plays b takes c, then I don't take on c3 or c4. I move my pawn to d4. Then I'm threatening queen c6 check. He could play queen b5 or c takes d. Yeah, I think he's just getting in trouble here. I gotta try it. At some point I need to play it. I'll play it now. Okay, pawn's in on h3. What's his plan? Queen c5. That doesn't. I don't think that helps him. But it could. He's trying to get the queen back into d4, maybe. But I guess by not helping him, it doesn't hurt him. Suppose I take this moment and play rook d3 to keep his queen out of my face. Okay, let's see. I can play rook c6. I could play rook c6. He plays queen d4. I play rook d3, and he eats my pawn on g4 with check. So we don't want that. So suppose I play rook d3 first. Okay. If I play rook d3, he cannot play queen d4. Suppose he tries f3. Then I play rook c6, attacking his queen. He can bring his queen back to f2 if he wants, but then I eat on f3. If he brings it back to g1, I've got to have good moves here. He's just asking for it. I can play rook d2. I can play pawn takes pawn and make him struggle. And on rook d3, if he plays, like I say, if he plays rook d1, rook f81, I'll play rook c6, drive his queen away. And if anything, I'll go back and stick my rook on f3. Okay, so let's see. Rook d3 is a good move here for black. Rook d3, because another thing, it opens up the diagonal for my queen. So I'm getting ready to try to checkmate him here. Rook d3. Okay, what's he do? If he tries rook ad1, I play rook c6. His queen can't go back to the king side. He could go back to b3 or b4, and suppose I just play pawn d4. Now I'm crawling all over his position. He can play rook takes rook, and I probably don't want to. I could just take his. I could check first f3, c takes d3, and he can take on d4, and then maybe this is the position where I trade queens, and then push d2, and I don't think he stops the pawn. Okay, rook d3. Okay, so this should be intriguing. I'm threatening a rook c6 and trying to administer a checkmate on the long diagonal somehow. Okay, he played rook d1. Now I know my move is rook c6. What's he going to do? Maybe he'll fall into the line that I just suggested, and hopefully I didn't have a flaw in it. Okay. Okay, queen a7. Now he's got a nuisance check, but that's it. He's not going to have any more. I'm just going to play d4 here and threaten to, well, it could, no, I can't play rook takes first, then d4. His queen's on that square. So, okay. So he's got a nuisance check. I shouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, d4. What's he do? If he plays pawn takes, oh, I see what his plan is. Oh, let me double check. Okay, d4. If he plays rook takes d3, I play pawn takes d3. Now again, if he takes on d4 with his queen, I take his queen and push d2, and he cannot stop my pawn, because it's just too far. And I have rook c1 coming. So the move here for black is d4. And he gets a check, and I'm not worried about that. He gets a check, and that's all he gets. And he still has to deal with the threats on his king. Okay, so d4. What's he got? Okay, so now check. See, check f3. I play rook takes rook, and when he takes back with the rook, I have queen takes f3 check and queen g2 mate, right? And he gets maybe some spite checks. Let me just verify that. Let's see. Queen d5 check. He has to play f3, because if he plays king g1, he gets mated. So he plays f3. Then I take his rook. I'm a rook up. He takes back with the rook, and I play queen takes f3 check, and he gets mated. And he gets a check on b8, and I go to g7. And he gobbles a pawn on b7, and I go to g6. And no, he can't take a pawn on b7 because my queen's guarding it. Okay, so queen d5 check. What do you have? You have f3, and then I play rook takes d1, and you're losing. It's mate. I've been blind before. Am I blind again? This is why I really need longer time to decide on things. Time that I just don't have. So here I've sacrificed 2 pawns and have a mating attack, and now, like I say, rook takes, and now he's down a rook and close to being down a king. How does he save mate? Okay, there's a spite check. Okay, like I say, he gets another spite check. Now where's this next check? He's got a lot of pawns for his rook, but not a heck of a lot else. Okay, now, is there a mate? I could play queen takes f3 here, and I think that probably does it, because he can't take my queen, it's pinned, and if he takes my rook, I go back to my theme of queen g2 mate, right? So what are his alternatives? If he plays queen takes on c6, I just take on f1 and it's mate. So it would be foolish for me to take his rook on f1 and then play queen takes f3 check because his king gets away. But I think queen takes f3 just does him in. What does he do? He doesn't have his only spite checks. Give up his queen. You know, queen f7, g7, or h7 check. I think queen takes f3 just does it, doesn't it? Sure seems like it to me. Doesn't have any move. And again, if rook takes d1, queen g2 is mate. He could, he can't even play. He can't play queen takes c6. He can't even give that up. He just walks into mate. Okay, so queen takes f3. What are you going to do? I don't think you do anything. You can't survive. The threat is queen g2 mate. And he resigned. Okay, so, tough game. Tougher than I made it tougher on myself than I thought. Maybe because I was busy blabbing all game. I don't know. A little rusty. That was first standard game I played since when? Last summer? Well, except for the shorter 20-30 minute games I've been playing. But I have no excuse. I should be able to do things with experience. There were certainly some things I didn't see in there. I did overlook the queen d4, forked a couple pawns. I didn't anticipate that, but I worked my way out of it. And I worked my way out of a few other things and I predicted that he would play 25a4 and start something, and then I had to went through a long process trying to figure out how to checkmate him, and kept finding ways out, and he saved himself by one tempo, but anyway, he's asking for help. I play at random. Check my website. I have lessons ready to go. Just watch them. Anyway, he's just played too quickly. That was his problem. But how does he save this? He can't save this. So I'm definitely rusty. My own play is better in a longer time control, and there's some drawbacks with playing on internet chess. What I'm doing is I'm looking at a full-size chessboard adjacent here. I'm not going to play on a 2D set, so I'm looking at a full chessboard, and I swivel to my left, and I can see the board, and I can look at that board and calculate my variations from that, because I prefer to be playing on a three-dimensional board when I play a long time control. And then every time you have to switch back and forth, it's just a little distracting. It's not an excuse, it's just a fact. You can't maintain full concentration when you have to go back and forth. Ideally, have somebody here to help you make the moves, but that's not possible today. Maybe tomorrow. But if somebody can make the moves for you, and you just sit there like you're at a regular over-the-board tournament game and go from there, you're fine, because you simulate turning a tournament condition. Somebody else sent me a tell, so I'll have I get all kinds of fans here. I wouldn't call them fans, but it's greatly appreciated when people recognize when you're trying to help and do things. Let's see what he says here. Hello, I wanted to thank you for sharing your thoughts on my games in the Team 45. Okay, you are quite welcome. Might as well check my website in my finger notes. I have many resources there and ready to go to help everyone. Okay. Anyway, whoops, there's my mouse. I'm trying to get back into full strength, but the frustrating thing for me in this game is the kid's 10 years old. He could be lying, I don't care. But he's 10 years old and he's playing fast, and I had to spend all my time to beat him. Now, would I have played it any differently? Would I have sacrificed the pawn if I had seen it? I don't know. Hard to say. Let's go back. Go back to my position. Let's see. That was on when he played Queen D4. That was on his 23rd move, so we're move 36 now, so 13, 26, let's go back 28 and see what happens. Back 28. Okay. Okay, so now that's when he played Queen D4. Okay, so what I did was I played G4 here. I didn't have to, but that's what I did. I could have played H6. I could have taken his bishop too. I don't want to turn on Stockfish and see what it says. I'd rather try to figure this out on my own first. Just one nice thing about ICC, you have a chess engine built in. You can examine and look at stuff for. But so I didn't even see. The thing that makes me mad is I didn't even anticipate the chance of him going to D4. I miss one movers. I can see deep things and consider things way into the ending, but one movers, they're beyond me. So some of this actually hinged back to this initial position here when he allowed knight H4. I guess I'm committed to taking, and I don't have G4 or G5. I wish I had G5, but I don't because of queen here. And now he's on that pawn twice, and I'm not on it at all. So if I play H6, I was saying this during the game, he plays H4, and he's crawling all over it again. And I just don't have enough here to compensate. Although, who knows? You know, maybe I do. Let's see, Rook F5. Okay, pawn takes, bishop takes, Queen G7. Yeah, maybe I do. Maybe I just should have looked a little farther. Now his bishop is pinned and he can't play F4. So, like I say, some of this is it's partly a thinking deficiency. You know, you look at that and you say, oh, he's crawling all over G5, but then you don't think anymore. So here I was just exposed a line of thinking that I could have gone into, and if I'd looked a little further, I would have seen this and realized that white can't go into this line. But then again, and it's not an excuse, this 45-45 is still a fast time control compared to real chess, 40 moves in 2.5 hours, or something with, or 40 moves in 2 hours with a 45-second increment. That's real serious tournament chess where you basically have an average of 3 minutes a move or more. 45-45 basically translates to about a 75-minute game if you change the increment. 2/3 the increment of 45 is 30, so it's about a 75-minute game. And if you consider a game lasts 40 moves, you're still only averaging 2 minutes a move or less, and a longer game even less time. So 45-45 isn't your ideal time. True chess, as I say, is 3 minutes a move or longer. And this here may be flawed. I don't know. I'll look at it a little bit more. I'm not trying to solve everything all at once. It's my game that I'll analyze and I'll determine on my own what's better. I know that I played a pretty decent game, and when I made a slip and allowed a pawn sacrifice, or allowed him to win the pawn, I found the best moves. It wouldn't surprise me if white wasn't better after that, because frankly I just didn't see I was giving up a pawn. But when you do, you give up pawns accidentally here and there, and you just got to sit and work and make the best of it. And hopefully the way I explained my thought process and how I was doing things will show you ways to do it when you don't have everything going the way you want. you can sit and dig in and try and get the best compensation and play that you can. And experience will make a big difference and confidence. Confidence is a big thing that's not teachable. You just have to learn it. And here, like I say, I've just exposed the flaw here of him getting too many things for it. So it was my fault. I just didn't look far enough. And you can't do that in chess because sometimes you can get away with it against the lower players, but the stronger your opponent, the less likely you are to get away with it. And that's the whole point I'd like to make. So I'm not going to sit here and tear this game apart any further. I think most of the thoughts were mentioned during the game, and all the active plans that Black had and ways White had to try to counter them. This is probably the best example so far that I've given of a Nimzovich defense in a standard game. Now while we're there, let me just show you a couple ideas here. This is a line I was explaining. Just wanted to show you a couple lines. The main line is to go knight f3, and Black has two interesting moves, so you can play bishop g5, or you can play e5, and either one is quite playable. Okay, bishop g4, e5. And I'm not going to sit here and analyze them out and show you all the possibilities, but just briefly, for instance, e5, it could involve a temporary pawn sacrifice, but Black's okay with that, and he will win this pawn back eventually. Black is ready to play bishop g4, and another alternative is to play bishop e3, bishop c5, and then Black is castling with check, gaining time, and eventually this pawn on e5 is a goner, and Black has at least an even game out of it. And then there's some tricky lines with the bishop g4 line where Black actually gives up an exchange. I've never played it. I've looked at it. I always like the e5 move better. But Black can give up an exchange in some lines here, and gets very, very tricky. And it's definitely worth a study. I just chose not to play it. I like the other line better. And knight c3 in itself is its own interesting variation. And there's a lot of moves Black can play here. Black can even slow play it and play e6 if he's not happy with the way a lot of the lines go, and you're kind of playing it like Guimard style of the French defense. And the other possibilities, there's some interesting moves here. Knight f6, and I've managed to actually do. I'll show you a little trick. I've managed to actually do this 2 or 3 or 4 times. E5, and Black plays this move, and White looks at that and says, "Gee, I got a free pawn." And what happens is, it's kind of cute. Black looks like, oops, Black looks like he's in trouble here, but he has this clever move, knight b to d8, and White cannot hold the pawn. And no matter what he tries, he cannot hold the pawn. So if he plays c4, Black plays e6. And I think I even had one game a number of years ago. I think it went c4, e6, and White even tried bishop g5 here, and Black just gives up the 2 minors, or gives up the rook for 2 minors, and comes out smelling like a rose. And going back just a little bit, if he doesn't, whoops, if he just goes back, then Black just comfortably accepts equality here. And so there's all sorts of interesting stuff in this Nimzovich defense. It's really a viable alternative if you're, whenever you play against e4, if it's stale or you want to learn something new. Stick with me in the months ahead, weeks and months ahead. I'll get more of these Nimzovich games in and share them with you. It's really a wonderful opening to play, and White just doesn't always know what to do with it. And then of course you can go into this line, d takes e4, and on d5 there's 2 lines. Knight b8's a little slow, knight e5's tricky, and then there's 2 main lines here. There's queen d4, and there's bishop f4, but there's other. White can try and stack a pawn with f3, and you really have to know this to play it. and then there's, like I say, there's in this position. Then there's divergence here. Do you play A6, which costs a tempo, or do you play F5, which weakens E6? And they're both perfectly playable, but you have to know them. And I've played them all. I've won. I've lost with them all. I've tried them all. You can't win with every opening, but your own skill will help you win more. But it's just such a fun opening because there's so many different things to it. And I even had some games that ended in quick knockouts with black. Let's see. There's a trick or two to be had here if you're not careful. Okay, knight G6. And I think, let's see, I'm trying to remember how this goes. I think queen takes, and then here. Yeah, bishop here. Okay, had this move played, and then you give up the queen. I think. Let's see, take here. Yeah, I take here. Then you play. If you take here, you have bishop d7. Yeah, if you take here, you have bishop d7, and if bishop takes on d7, you take with the king, and you've covered the queening square. And on this, you play here, and you come out a piece ahead. So white can definitely fall into trouble. And I don't remember all the lines. I'll show some of my old games. I'll remember if I'm actually sitting down and playing. This recording has now gone 1 hour and 35 minutes, and not everyone's going to stick around for the whole hour and 35. They're going to end it soon. But I need a break. It's been a long game. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch this long game of mine. I appreciate it, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the next video I make. Thanks again. Bye. Yeah, thanks again. This is the postscript from our rats. I enjoyed watching that game a second time. I really hope it helps you. And even in the final few moves, I missed a number of shorter checkmates. Now, they're only shorter because white can delay things by spite checks by throwing his queen away with check. So, and I was talking to somebody else in Team 45 League about how he had missed a few mates, and we both agreed, you know what, that's fine. You see a mate, and if you're convinced it's a mate, it's a mate. Yeah, you can go into the postmortem and find a quicker one, and so what? You missed it. It's just that mates are mates, and they end the game. You want to be a little more careful when you're not mating, that like end up a rook ahead instead of a piece ahead. Certain things that can give your opponent chances to stick around. So once again, I look forward to making more of these 45 games for you at the 45-minute pool at ICC. And once again, thanks so much for your time and everything. We'll see you soon. Take care.